Two friends, Alan Dale and Jerry Carew, who grew up just a few streets apart in St. John's East End, have been separated by Canada's geography for 3 decades. They came together virtually during the pandemic to chat about like-minded interests. Alan lives in PEI and Jerry in Newfoundland. Thriving in remoteness has been a common theme for both of them during the pandemic. Gale Force Wins, the podcast is the result.
And welcome to Gale Force Wins. I'm Alan Dale, and with me as always, my good buddy from St. John's, Newfoundland, Jerry Carew. How are you, Jerry?
Doing well. I told you guys this before we went on the air. I had a little bit of an incident yesterday where a door in a car struck me in the nose. So prior to doing these podcasts, I never do makeup. But today I actually used my wife's makeup to cover up a very significant gash on my nose. So anyway, some irrelevant information for our viewers. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, you're looking good, Jerry. The makeup's really suiting you well. You should wear it more often, quite honestly. You got to be careful of the wind in Newfoundland for sure. Listen, we're on again. Another good conversation on Gale Force Wins, and it really is all about celebrating success. And really, the horizon is looking bright. And we're certainly excited to have Caron Hawco on the podcast with us today. Caron, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi there. Yeah, actually, Caron Hawco, as you mentioned. I'm an independent consultant located in St. John's, Newfoundland. I do international trade work, providing advice to people wanting to get into new territories like Norway and Guyana specifically. I tend to be in the oil and gas space or ocean industry space, and helping new technologies commercialize, communications, international business development, and just an overall business consultant kind of person here.
Right. Where did you grow up, Caron? Are you from Newfoundland originally?
I am. I grew up in St. John's.
Yeah.
And actually grew up in the same neighborhood as Jerry did. And after university, got my political science degree. I then moved off to Toronto, like many Newfoundlanders did in the 80s. And then when the oil and gas industry was starting here in the mid-90s, made my way home and got in very early with Hibernia. And now I'm 20 plus years in that space. And it's been a wonderful ride.
Great. Was it nice to come home from Toronto? I think a lot of Newfoundlanders like to be home right now.
Yeah, it was, you know what, at the time, I was torn a little bit because I really enjoyed living in Toronto. Yeah. But at the time, housing in Toronto, there were just some practical financial considerations at the time. And I was part of a wave of Newfoundlanders who had moved away that were coming home because of new opportunities, post-cod moratorium, and then oil and gas was really starting to grow. And I knew if I got in early enough, that I could build a pretty significant career. And since that time, I've worked with Norwegian companies, for example. I worked with Statoil for almost 7 years. And I've been able to really travel the world as a result of that experience. So best decision ever.
Caron, love that. Just quick question, Alan. I just want to jump in there. When you talk about going out on your own, it's an interest of mine. You know, in the advertising world, I talk to entrepreneurs all the time. What motivated you to go out on your own? Let's get that out of the way first, because to me, that's really important and it's inspirational in many cases.
So the story is, when I came home, I actually got a job with NOIA, the Oil and Gas Industry Association. I was their head of communications. And I was surrounded by a new wave of entrepreneurialism in Newfoundland. These were the first, leaders in oil and gas here. And
what year was that? What year?
95, 96, I came home. Yeah. So, and these were like, the Steve Henleys, the Rob Crosbys, Lee Shinkles, Moya Cal. These were the leaders, the trailblazers. And they were so focused and hungry about getting their piece of the pie. Right. And I was really inspired by it. So I stayed with NOIA only 2 years and then decided to leave. And the day I put my resignation in, the head of Terra Nova project, which was a big oil and gas project, came to me. She said, "Come here, I need to talk to you." She said, "Don't go anywhere. I've got something for you." And with that, I started doing contract work with them immediately. I formed a partnership and we pretty much owned most of the public relations, local content kind of business. And we built our company to about 12, 15 people, servicing primarily oil and gas related business. People, international companies coming into Newfoundland wanted to break in, and helping Newfoundland companies that wanted to get in as well. And we ended up selling our company to CCL out of Nova Scotia, and which was an incredible opportunity for us. I then took a short break after that and went out on my own again. But then I became a solopreneur at that point.
Right.
I was a solopreneur for, I think, 6-7 years, and then became, as a volunteer, I was chair of NOIA. So I was a staff person with NOIA at one point, then made my way into being chair of the organization. And then I was hired by Statoil. And then that was the game changer for me in terms of working with an international oil and gas company from Norway. They made one of the world's largest oil and gas discoveries while I was with them here in Newfoundland. And my job was to help translate how to do business in Newfoundland with this Norwegian company. So I was helping them understand the regulations, the culture, how to do business. And I remember my boss, who was an amazing woman, Hege Ragno, the first female oil and gas leader in Newfoundland that ran an oil company here. She said, you need to tell the Newfoundland story. She saw that we had this Arctic excellence that was happening here in ocean tech. And she said, you are going to get on a plane, you're going to go to Norway, and you're going to sell this to our company. Because it's a huge company. They really didn't know what was happening here. They were a new they were a new oil and gas operator here. And so my job was to storytell and to say, like, this is what's happening in Newfoundland, because I really had a strong understanding because of my work with NOIA and as a consultant. I understood the supply chain really well, and I knew where our sweet spots were.
Right.
So it was amazing. Like I've been all over the Arctic. They put me on I'd call it like an informal speaking tour to educate executives in the company about what was going on here. And since that time, I'm an advocate now. I'm a champion for what's going on in Newfoundland and Labrador.
It's clear that your background must be in communication. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Were you formally educated as a communicator?
Yes, I am. Yeah. My master's degree was in communications. I studied in Ontario.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's funny, so many of the leaders that we're seeing around the globe these days have a communication background. I look to the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Everybody's looking for a lawyer, an accountant to lead them, but you got these communicators that are sprouting up as being leaders globally. That's fantastic. Tell me what it was like to tell that Newfoundland story, because it wasn't just facts and figures and all that. What was it that intrigued them about Newfoundland?
It was our connection and connectivity to the ocean and the harsh environment that we were in, our ability to operate comfortably in this environment. That was really something that stood out. And it was also the tenacity. And we're very cultured in terms of music and arts, as are Norwegians. So There was this connection that we had. And also that pride, you go to Norway, then they have such a, pride of what they've accomplished through the oil and gas industry in particular, and everything that spun off from there. I think they saw a lot of themselves in the storytelling that happened at that point. And I was very passionate. It was at times it was a little tricky because you're still working for a corporation doing business here, and balancing your passion and your loyalty, I'll use that word, with business sometimes can be a little bit of a struggle. Right. So there'd be at times you go, maybe you like it a little bit too much, and it's hard to get that balanced perspective. But I'm good. I'm okay with it.
I was reading through your LinkedIn profile before we got on here, and one of the things that jumped off the page for me was Russian studies. It
was in the 80s,
okay.
The early 80s, and it was the Cold War, and I was in political science at the time, and it was just I was young. I was 16 years old in university, so it was very there was something very, I'm going to use the word sexy about it, very alluring. Yeah. And so I found myself doing Russian studies, and it was also just a passion of mine, reading Russian literature and politics at the time. You can probably all recall, every day was around the Cold War, and and just the news was centered around that. So I was just naturally curious.
Yeah, curious about what.
I got to jump in there. I was coaching hockey, and I'll never forget, it was at the Celtics organization. Halfway through the season, the executive director says, "Oh, I got a new boy for you. He's Russian." And I'm like, all right, I can't wait. We're going to have a Russian on our team. And turns out he had never played hockey before, couldn't skate, and he couldn't speak English. So like, thanks a lot. So I started to read Russian, and I used to put up motivational sayings on the walls using big sheets of paper and stuff. Yeah, it was kind of neat the way I enjoyed doing it, because I coached the way I wanted to be coached. But anyway, I started writing Russian, and I can tell you this, that it was difficult. It was like, okay, I'll stick with French, right?
I can still read it a little bit. Like if I go to, to go to Europe, and there is some, some, like when we used to go to Spain pre-COVID for a holiday, there would be communities with a lot of Russian tourists. And so I could still read it a little bit. I mean, I'd need to study again quite a bit.
My only interaction with Russia was when I was in the Navy. We'd sail up off the coast of Russia, kind of a show of force, and they'd send Russian spy ships to follow the fleet. And these would be, they looked like fishing trawlers, and they'd be very close to the destroyers. And we would throw over microphones over the side to listen for submarines and stuff. And these guys would pick them up, and we'd be waving at each other. And then we'd write notes on the things for them. Anyway, so that's my only story of Russia and the Cold War.
It reminded me of something. I actually went to university in the States. I went to a military college to study Russian for a summer.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
where is that?
Reminded me of this. It was in Northfield, Vermont. And this is where people that were in the CIA and government officials would go there to study during the summer. So there would be this mix match of people like that were artists and poets and military folks studying Russian for 6 to 8 weeks in the summer. It was, gosh, I'm glad you reminded me of that. That's funny.
Well, that must have been an amazing experience.
It was. I was only about 17 or 18 years old. And yeah, it was really amazing, actually.
So I want to tap into you mentioned poets and cultures and musicians and stuff. And you talked about that earlier in Newfoundland, how that exists there. I tend to agree. In Newfoundland, there's this, I call it a collision, maybe not the best word, but there's this beautiful collision of music and culture and history. And now you're seeing technology sprouting out of all of that. And I tend to think that they go hand in hand. It's a porous relationship. You need that creativity. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So I actually used to be on the board of directors of Business and Arts Newfoundland and Labrador. And that's really the foundation behind it is, the magic that Newfoundland and Labrador talent brings to the tech community in particular is something that I really would like to see more of industry tapping into. We have incredible artists. Well, actually, it's not STEM anymore. It's STEAM, right? You've got
exactly. Yep.
So that A is really important. Mm-hmm. So you can get coders and engineers, but those that have that cultural understanding, tech is about human interaction and understanding human interaction and understanding the arts and how people are motivated and communicate. It's critical to the advancement of global new technologies. Yeah. So I actually am a real advocate. It's a good word as advocate for Newfoundland in that space and educating our politicians and our leaders to really look at that differently. And even yesterday, when you saw the task force report, mm-hmm. Dame Green actually mentioned about we need to invest more in our arts and culture in Newfoundland. Right. 100%. We're highly underfunded, and we need to really support the growth of that because it's the magic, I believe.
Yeah.
Caron, just sorry, Alan, I got to jump in. It's funny. I'm a trumpet player in a jazz band, and I've always had this real interest in music and how it could be better business-wise. I think Spirit of Newfoundland has really found some secret sauce there. But it's funny, when the schools are built, new schools are built, and I'll never forget, I can't remember which school it was. My wife's a teacher. They built the school, and the band room was actually secondarily the cafeteria. And I was thinking, dear God, we're missing the point here. If we don't have a band room and a cafeteria separate, what are we doing? Hopefully that's not the way they're going forward. But anyway, that's a thought that just jumped into my head.
You know what, though? The skills that you develop in the arts, performance in particular, and the confidence that you build as a result of performance are really key elements that you want in your workforce of the future. There's a lot of research around that. Actually, when I was at Statoil, we had a Heroes of Tomorrow program, and we intentionally invested in the arts. So Statoil, which is now Equinor today, is actually a very large sponsor for the Newfoundland and Labrador Folk Festival. And it was all about, the future of your workforce and a population that is, has a strong arts and culture foundation is highly attractive for investors and for tech development and just for the confidence that you want in your workforce.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Caron, you talked about educating the government and about different things and stuff like that. I find that a society, community grows best when all of the pillars are working together. And the pillars that I often describe are community, academia, government, and industry. If those four big pieces are working hand in glove together, good results come. Sometimes they're very siloed up, and it's very difficult to break down the silos between them. But in many cases, when they drop, the result is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I'm a real proponent of collaboration.
Yeah.
So I would say historically in Newfoundland, the oil and gas industry has operated in a silo, and you didn't see a lot of integration across the economy, say with the environmental community or around tech even. So over the last number of years, as my volunteer work and also my professional work, I'm helping to bring people together more. So now you're seeing, and it's not only me, there's a group of people doing this now, recognizing that collaboration is fundamental to a strong ecosystem. Like a tech community, you got to have all those pillars, as you mentioned.
Right.
So now there are intentional things happening in Newfoundland to get people at the table together.
Right.
Like our ocean industries, you're seeing now, like oil and gas would operate over here and the fisheries would operate over here. Now through Canada's Ocean Supercluster, you've got players that would not normally be at the table together are now collaborating and advancing tech for our oceans in an incredible way. It's very exciting to see, and it's breaking those silos down.
100%. And the tech that's being created has application across multiple sectors. Talk to me about the good things that are happening in that ocean economy right now in Newfoundland, Atlantic Canada, and Canada.
Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible to watch what's happening. And it is Atlantic Canada, actually. Yep. Well, let's talk about Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. Actually, this is the interesting part of this. Yeah. Years ago, you wouldn't see a lot of conversations going on between the two. There was almost like this embedded competition that's happening.
Right.
I am so thrilled to see that's all starting to go away. Well, it has been going away the last number of years, but it's been intentional. We're not competitors. Together, we're stronger. We're more competitive at a global level. So you're seeing much more of that, which is very exciting. The other piece is, and I was mentioned to you just before this, is Newfoundland and Labrador, we underestimate what we've been able to achieve when it comes to our ocean industries. Much of it started from our fisheries, but then really took off as a result of the investment from oil and gas. So over the last, say, 10, 15 years, I'd say over $500 million has been invested in R&D in Newfoundland and Labrador around the oceans. We're only a small population. Yeah. Just think about what that does to an ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So now we've got this ocean tech hub that's just brilliant and getting stronger every day. And it's exporting around the world. There's one company I was talking to recently. They're exporting to 50 different countries. This is a small place, and they've got a footprint in 50 different countries around the world. And that's a result of this growth in our ocean industries. So I was doing a study a couple of years ago, and it was interesting. Just looking at some data about revenue and what's happening in Canada. And I'm looking at it going, holy smokes, Newfoundland and Labrador has the largest ocean economy in the country based on revenue. Mm-hmm. And it was one of these moments where you went, mind blown. So I go to this meeting of community leaders around the supercluster, in fact, and I said, did you know that we have the largest ocean economy? And you could see, you couldn't hear a pin drop going, no way. I said, and here we are, all these leaders in different areas have never really brought the picture together or put it all together in one pot and said, if you add fisheries, plus oil and gas, plus tech, plus marine transportation, and just look at what you have. It's really magnificent. Now, I don't think it's that case right now. I think we're probably number 2 now because revenues in oil and gas are obviously challenged as a result of COVID and what's going on in the oil and gas industry. But nevertheless, that leadership position needs to be better understood. And we as Canadians need to really start talking about this more, because the ocean economy is going to triple in size by 2030. It's $1 trillion play. So where does Canada fit into this? And then the question I ask is, where is Newfoundland and Labrador in this play?
Right. You describe it perfectly. I mean, there's some solid foundations from which things are built here, right? In the fishery, in oil and gas, and tech, and all of those things play a part in it. But there's got to be more to the secret sauce. What is it about Newfoundland that allows these things to thrive and grow? I know there's a connection to the ocean. I get that. What else is there?
It's, what's really been happening, we're talking about the breaking down of silos. Yep. It's a culture of supporting one another. I think that there was a time when you'd hear the story of the lobster pot in Newfoundland and people were tearing you down. I don't see that anymore. Right. I'm seeing my colleagues and peers across the table as cheerleaders for one another. Right. What's really interesting, what's happening here too, is about how women are participating more in the economy here. So I'm an advocate for gender diversity in natural resources. And there is a community of female entrepreneurialism that's really special, that's growing here. Wow. So there's a lot. I think it also comes from a couple of years ago when the oil and gas industry really was struggling and you saw layoffs happening everywhere. And doom and gloom was on the horizon. There was a lot of negative talk. We pulled ourselves out of it. And it was based on collaboration and understanding that, we're in this together. We're stronger when we all join forces. And there's also some really good things that have happened with the government of Canada in terms of investing, like I mentioned, the super cluster. And those types of things have really helped to spawn a whole new attitude and culture to drive success.
Right. I love that you hone right in on Newfoundlanders wanting to help one another succeed and thrive. And I think that is a big part of the special sauce. Jerry and I have many conversations around this outside of what we do here on the podcast, but it's to me, it's almost like you've got this collectivist society and this individual society, and they coexist in Newfoundland. They work so well together, and people just want to see people thrive. And you're right, they support one another. I'm so encouraged when I talk to companies in Newfoundland, whether it's the Genoa Designs or the Virtual Marines or the Krakens or Provincial Aerospace. They all want to tell another guy's story too. They're doing great work over here and they're doing great work, and they're just so proud of the whole ecosystem.
I got to tell you what's really been interesting. So I do work in Guyana. Several years ago, Guyana had some of the world's largest oil and gas discovery, and they are the fastest growing economy in the world right now. They are in South America, the north part of South America. And so ExxonMobil made this huge discoveries there. So it's a developing area. They don't really have a lot of infrastructure, and they also have local content requirements, and they need to build capacity, just like we did 20, 30 years ago. Right. So the story is the same. So then we bring delegations of companies to Guyana, say like 20, 30 at a time, and something very cool happens there. You've got these companies who built from nothing here in Newfoundland to be successful in the oil and gas industry, internationally focused, high standards. It's like the military or any other type of international business. The standards and certifications are very high. And then they are showcasing what they have done in Newfoundland, in Guyana, looking for partnerships and wanting to collaborate to help build. There's a humility that they bring to the table because they've been there. And as a result, the Guyanese will say, they really like working with the Newfoundland companies, because there's just something that they bring to the table. You can build a trustworthy relationship. So when I'm down there, I get so proud. I remember we were there last year, and NOIA was hosting the trade mission, and they put on a video of what we've been able to achieve in Newfoundland through oil and gas. And I'm in the audience, it's like, 100 degrees. I'm sweating terribly. And I'm also crying because it's like this video's on there and I go, that's my home. We did this. And it was, it's like I still get goosebumps when I think about how now Newfoundland and Labrador companies are coming full circle. Not only are we supporting our own business, we're diversifying into other areas like Genoa, into shipbuilding. We're looking at biotech, and we're looking at Guyana. So like that's really the full evolution of what local content did for us at the beginning, and now how we're focusing on international expansion.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny, like everywhere I go and I do business, and I like you do business around the globe, and the Canadian brand is so strong. The Newfoundland, the Atlantic Canadian brand is so strong. Our standards are high. Our quality assurance is all, of a gold standard, right? We are global leaders in so many things. Yet we don't tend to tell our own story at home.
And we absolutely, and I did a study recently for NOIA, the Environmental Association here, around energy transition. And I'm meeting with the export organization for Norway. And they come to Newfoundland quite a bit, and I do work with them as well, Innovation Norway. And they said, you're so understated, like you can't see the niche opportunity that's in front of you. You can't see your strength. You don't talk about it enough. Like, we love going to Newfoundland. And this is the story they were saying to me is you got to get out there more. We've got to start telling our story more. Look, I did some work recently with a British Columbia company that are competing in the shipbuilding industry. And they had no idea about the Arctic expertise that Newfoundland and Labrador had. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting. So we don't even tell our own story across the country.
Right. Yeah.
So that's something we need to do more of that, because together we're stronger.
But Caron, you know what? I'm listening to you talk. I'm not saying much because I realize how little I know, and I'm here in business. I know very little about what we're doing. So we need to start here.
Absolutely. And that was actually part of the story was, if you go to our own government websites, and no offense to government, I hope by something like this, you'll be inspired to do something. There's not a whole lot of information about the bench strength that we bring to the table.
Yeah.
So I'm involved with TechNL right now. And so the idea is, how do we bring all these organizations together to amplify the message, support the message, and get it globally?
Yeah, it's through this.
You're global, right? You can't stay local when you're in the technology space.
But it's through this type of thing, Caron, I think is what resonates with people. It's the genuine conversation that I think resonates with people around the world. When they get to know a Canadian, when they get to know an Atlantic Canadian, when they get to know a Newfoundland and Labradorian, they want to do work with you. Like, there's just something that's inviting about our personalities that we want to embrace new ideas. We want you to be a part of the solution with us. And I think that resonates with people around the globe.
Yeah, I think so as well. The ocean industries in particular, and you would know this, both of you, is that it's relationship based.
Yeah.
And I think Newfoundlanders, Atlantic Canadians are very good at that. And that's where you foster these really strong, trusting relationships. And then you've also got a good education system, you've got good supports, and a professionalism that you bring to the table. It's harder doing it from here sometimes. So therefore, your game has to be a little bit higher.
Right.
The standards are higher, really. And offshore, because of the harsh environment, like you don't mess around. You've got to be good.
Yeah.
You know what, Caron, I've always thought of this, if I started a restaurant in New York, by the time someone found out that the restaurant was the Pits, you'd probably have a couple of $1 million in the bank. Here, you better have it good within a month, right?
Absolutely. The standards are high, and it's a small community and word gets out. So if you're good here, you're very, very good, and people are trusting you and they're supporting you.
Right. Okay. So Norway, South America doing business, and you're leading these trade delegations down there, or?
Sometimes I do. I actually have led, And oftentimes now I will go down on my own. So companies, they either go on trade missions, and I do provide some support at that level, or when they come home after trade missions, they'll then phone me directly, go, we know that you have the specialization. We want to go to the next level in Guyana, and they'll hire me specifically to get them in, coach them. I'm also part of the Canada-Guyana Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
That's been an incredible journey. Yeah, what a great organization.
I'm listening to the two of you talk, and I'm in awe of both of you. I mean, Alan has traveled extensively in Pakistan and India, and I used to follow that on Facebook. Caron, I followed you on your various social media. I spent a lot of time traveling in Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland. I applaud both of you for your international travel, which sometimes is not easy either, right?
It's not easy. I miss it terribly. I can't wait to go back to Guyana. But I haven't been sick all year. There's just I have not minded the siesta from flying.
Yeah.
But I'm ready.
I'm with you on that.
But I'm ready to get back.
Caron, I call that a tactical pause. I call it what's happened here in the last number of months. I call it a tactical pause, where we've all had this moment to reflect on where we are. And it's almost like, I think some of us have been looking to, okay, what's the future going to look like? How do I evolve out of this, right? And other people are saying, I'm never going back to that life again. I'm never going to be on the road again, because it's hard work, right? I mean, it's hard work hopping on planes, traveling, and then having to be on your game the very next morning.
Got it. I mean, because jet lag is a thing. It's a real thing. I can't imagine India. That must be incredibly challenging business travel. It's interesting. People are saying they're not going to go back to the conferences and things are going to slow down. I don't believe that.
I don't either.
I think because I know the people that I work with and the community that I love to be a part of. I can't wait to get on a plane with them. I can't wait to go to restaurants with them. I'm going to be so. They're not going to be able to get rid of me.
but that's
loving people. I can't wait.
Yeah, but that's business development, is it not? I mean, it's that relationship development. Is that in parts of the world, and it's sometimes it's very misunderstood by people that don't do it for a living. But in parts of the world, like, you got to go meet the people's parents, and you got to go to supper with them, and you develop a relationship, and that's as important to them as the numbers, right?
Absolutely. If you get invited into, like, if you're in Norway, you get invited into someone's home, it's a privilege.
Yeah, 100%.
And I take that very seriously. Yeah. And that's also a sign of trust. Yeah. And you're going to be able to do business together. That trust is just fundamental to any type of business. I mean, just because you can offer me a gadget and it suits my needs, it doesn't mean I necessarily want to do business with you. I can find gadgets anywhere. Yeah, it's yours that I want It's yours that I want because you suit my needs, but you're also a trusting, good person.
Right.
And that is fundamental. That's been why Newfoundlanders have been successful in Guyana in particular. 100%. I believe so. I think that they bring an openness and a sense of connection and community that makes people comfortable.
Right. Yeah. They're genuine, right? They're very genuine. The conversation is genuine. I mean, there's money to be made and all of it. There's more, but it's deeper than that. People want to make a connection. Newfoundlanders want to make a connection. They want to make a connection with us. And I think it can't be done over Zoom. Can't be done over Zoom.
It can't. There's times, and even now, I'm doing a big project with a shipbuilding organization now, and it's just, the other day said it's time to come into the office, and I went, we can't bring the project to the next level without me going in and start interfacing more. But that collaboration is not the same. I'm glad we're able to do this more because when I worked with Statoil, 80% of my time was on video. So I'm very used to this platform, and I could never get anybody to do it when I was a consultant. So now that we're doing it, I'm glad.
That's right.
But it's for me, it's time. I want to get back to collaborating and being in rooms with people and look at them in the eyes again.
Yeah. So, Caron, I mean, lots of doom and gloom out there. Everybody's talking negative. Everybody's talking what's going wrong and all the mistakes. And whether it's locally, whether it's regionally, nationally, and internationally, you cannot turn on the news and it's just all heavy headlines. Tell me about the good things that are happening over there. What's happening in that ocean economy that we should be paying attention to?
Well, just the first thing I have to say is that when you talk to people and you're going, so how's your year been? 100% of the time is, I've never been so busy. Like, I've never been so busy. It's been crazy.
Yeah.
And it's going to get busier when, like this, if this is what the slowdown is, oh my goodness, I can't wait. So that's one, people have really buckled down and really got focused, and you're seeing a lot of delivery and people anticipating the economy opening now. So you're starting to hear the engines rev up a bit. Okay, we're getting ready. Yeah. We're getting on the planes again. Yeah. And the other piece, I think that the Ocean Supercluster really kicked off and really started to gain momentum at a good time. Yeah. So you're seeing new injections of R&D and funds come into this environment. That's really been helpful. The oil and gas industry is starting to swing back again. So while it was very tough for people, and thank you to the government of Canada for helping to keep the economy somewhat moving, because you couldn't let it stop. Right. But you saw a lot of tenacity, people really digging in and delivering. Yeah. And I'm seeing this across the board right now, more collaboration, more conversations about partnerships. I think people became, we all were very afraid at first. We didn't know what that meant. Yeah. So that brought a humility to the table as well. And so I think that there's an openness now that people really want to get down to doing things together. Right. Yeah. Well, I tell you, if that's a byproduct of the COVID and we get a lot of collaboration coming out the other end, that's a success right there. Absolutely. So, despite the negative news all the time, you also hear, be kind. You're hearing that language a lot. Right. Just treat people well. Yeah. And I think that really has permeated. Yeah. I certainly have felt it. People have been concerned because I'm a solopreneur. And when my colleagues and friends will phone, they're like, they want to make sure I'm okay. Yeah. And then I said, are you kidding me? We're having the best year ever. Like, this has been fantastic. Right. But there is still a sense of community to make sure that people are going to be okay through this. Yeah. And we're seeing the end of it, thank goodness. Yeah, I think we're getting very close to the end of it for sure. there's some things obviously we have to get through, but I think the light is at the end of this tunnel, and I think we're coming out stronger. I do too. I think that we're diversifying more. Yeah. Like these, unidimensional economies, like resource-based economies like Newfoundland and Labrador has been. You're seeing a big transition happening there. You're seeing oil and gas talking to tech more. You're seeing tech. Look at Verafin. Oh my gosh, right? Yeah. Just wow. Genoa. Yesterday there was an announcement that C-SPAN is going to get one of the icebreakers. So that's going to mean sustained work for Genoa. Yeah. I work with a company called eDNA Tech, and they sequence water samples from the ocean, and they can identify every organism that's in that water sample. Mm-hmm. That's changing the game of environmental monitoring. Yeah. And also can have applications in terms of carbon management and carbon measurement. Yeah. So there are just a lot of really interesting things happening here. I always say to people, my work tends to touch the water a lot. Like it's there's an ocean somewhere in my sphere. That just because we're an island, I think that's just the organic nature of business here. Yeah. And all of those jobs that you just described and all of those companies, these are good jobs. Yeah, these are very good jobs. These are strong organizations. Yeah. And not highly technical. It's, you're talking about, DNA sequencing. This is one of the best and largest private sector organizations in this space in the country. And it's here in Newfoundland. Yeah. Those jobs, go back to the shipbuilding one. You go back to that. That's a generation of work there, right? It not only is it good paying work, but it's got a long, long runway. This is exactly the kind of thing you want. This is industry building, right? And plus they are in the digital shipbuilding space, and that's that twinning process. That's next generation shipbuilding. That is so globally relevant and competitive, and we've got one of the largest organizations in the country that specialize in that particular area here in Newfoundland. Once again, we don't know these stories. We're telling these stories, Caron. Gina and Leonard have been on here. What they've done is unbelievable. What they've done right there in Newfoundland. Again, I could go over company by company, and I'll
I'll talk about Kraken again. I mean, you look at Kraken Robotics creating underwater robotic systems that have application across multiple sectors and selling globally. It's unbelievable, right in Mount Pearl, Newfoundland. And the best part about those companies are, Caron, when you walk in the door of those companies, you walk into the shop floor, you get a good feeling. There's good people working in there.
There's really good people, and they care about community, and they make big investments in the communities here. They definitely step up, in terms of contribution to the economy, but also just a sense of pride that you have in them.
Yeah.
We need to let our young people know more about this, because that's the big concern I have, is that our young people don't really understand our connectivity to the ocean industries.
Yeah.
So, we need to tell the story more and more. So hopefully shows like this can actually help amplify the messaging. So more young people, and also people from away, get excited about what's happening here, and we can attract more immigration coming in as well.
It's really funny, right, that we have to work on that. Like, it's funny we have to work on explaining to the next generation of the opportunities that exist in our ocean. Here in Prince Edward Island, we struggle the same thing on the agriculture side. And you can't look around and there's not a farm in front of you, yet we still struggle educating the next generation about the amazing opportunities that exist in agriculture, everything from robotics to environmental management. There's so much there, but they don't understand it. They just
traditional industries that are dirty and wet, right?
Yeah, right.
You don't make the connection. You go, no, this is tech. This is globally relevant.
Yeah, and you're right.
It's sustainable business, right? I mean, it's very important that we let our young people, we educate them more about the opportunities that we have at home.
Right. And exactly. Dirty and wet. That's a good way to describe. I mean, Len Pecor, as an example, started underneath a fishing boat and started to design that. It was dirty and wet. And look what he's got now. I mean, he's got 250 employees, on track to double that in digital twinning. That's unbelievable. Right.
It is. Absolutely. They're a client of mine as well. And I love working with them.
It's funny, It's Caron. I got a LinkedIn message from a guy who watched Len's episode, and he said I actually edited in the part where the speech that Len gave at when he got the award, the Alumni of the Year. It's so inspirational, that story, but it also brings back Len's respect for the Marine Institute. And Alan, back to your point, the academia, business, and community, and all those parts working together. It's got to work,
Yeah, I just did a study actually with NIA, and we looked at jurisdictions around the world that are traditionally in oil and gas, who have actually expanded their oil and gas expertise into clean technology. And so what are the elements that you need in place?
Yeah.
You need good regulations, good policy, a strong ecosystem. You need more innovation clusters.
Yeah.
It's the university and the institutions around you are really feeding into that. You need export orientation. There's all these elements that we need to really focus on to make sure the ecosystem is fully in place.
Yeah.
Because the what's happening with energy transition is probably the largest opportunity in front of us.
Right.
Trillions and trillions of dollars are being spent. So where is our space? Where is our place in this evolution of industry? Because it's happening live right now in front of us.
Yeah.
And we're a little bit behind in Atlantic Canada. And I'm going to put us all into the Atlantic Canada bucket on this one. We're lagging behind somewhat, and it's time to giddy up, because it's right there in front of us, and we've got a place in this.
First sign of that, though, is recognizing it, right? Recognizing the opportunity. Yeah, it's okay to be a little bit lagging at some point, but as long as you can recognize it and see it, you'll catch up. I think we were, and certainly in speaking with the folks at the Ocean Supercluster, maybe 5 years ago, we were lacking as a country in that innovative mentality. But I can tell you now, and when I go to meetings, people are pointing to Canada as the example. It doesn't take long to catch up.
I 100% agree with you. That's absolutely what my message has been. It goes, it's not too late. This is still a global play.
Yeah.
And we're a small, nimble society here.
Right. Yeah.
We've got it going on, really. I've said in an interview recently, we're small, but we're mighty. And we've got a lot to offer here. So Let's find out where that is in the equation. Is it, say, for example, Muskrat Falls? Nobody wants to talk about Muskrat Falls. Well, I want to talk about Muskrat Falls because there's a global hydrogen play about to happen. We've got 100% renewable energy going to be happening in Newfoundland and Labrador, and it's the only place, I think, in North America. So what does that mean for our society? So you're right, the doom and gloom yesterday from that report, she also highlighted that energy transition is absolutely critical. It doesn't mean, though, it's despite oil and gas, it's actually with oil and gas.
It has to be with it, right?
Yeah, it's the expertise, it's the opportunity, it's the resources that we can now build upon to go after these other opportunities that are in front of us.
You spoke.
Shame on us if we don't.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Shame on us if we don't.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Now you spoke of agility. I love that. I love the nimbleness of a small place. And Newfoundland and Labrador is not small by any stretch of the imagination, but it's small in the context of the globe. And so if you get all of those pillars working together and you've got this porous relationship and everything, the information's flowing and everybody's focused in the same direction, well, I think the fuel in that fire is your ability to be agile and responsive.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that Canada has a big role in this. I tell you, the smallness is really around the opportunity and how you market yourselves. Like Nova Scotia is very good at how it markets itself.
Yeah,
I think we can learn a lot actually from how they do that. But it's still I'm going to say on a global level, it's still smallish. So when I see global opportunities, a Canadian brand is really important. And if I was going to advocate here today, I'd say, that is something that Team Canada needs to get ready to go, because after COVID, I can promise you Norway, China, and everybody else they're out there. They're ready to go. So what does the Canadian brand do to help us now re-enter the marketplace? Because there is a re-entry that's going to happen. It's going to ramp up very fast while people are really busy and things are happening. I still anticipate there's going to be huge momentum. Yeah. And I really hope that we can all join forces around the ocean economy and the supercluster and the brand under Canada to really do something impressive, because it's needed. Yeah. Our companies are small, right? Our companies are still smallish. So there's a need for that amplification.
Yeah, it's like that curve of innovation, right? As we come out of the pandemic, I think Canada, we want to position ourselves as being like on that early adopter side and getting out of the gate fast, because you're right. Everybody's going to try to come out of the gate and try to position themselves in the post-COVID world.
Absolutely. And energy transition, you saw the last year, tremendous moves in that space, a lot of activity. So while we are a little bit behind now and it's not too late, we do need to really get our acts together on that front. And I believe we are. Yeah. I don't mind repeating it over and over again, just to keep our politicians on fire.
Caron, we always ask our guests to leave the audience with a small takeaway. What would be a piece of advice or something that you would leave to people to say that what the future looks like, or why we should pay attention? What would that be for you?
Well, I think that Newfoundland and Labrador has been able to prove we've over the years what tenacity and drive can do, and how we can build our society from from a moratorium and near economic collapse to a province that became very strong, making a strong contribution to the government of Canada and to the Canadian society, and never giving up and really digging in and being focused and open to collaboration. We are so much stronger when we are together collaborating. Right. And it's something that I really fundamentally believe that we need to do more of that, and we need more coordination. And the one thing that I will say, and I'm going back to diversity, we need to ensure that we are fully optimizing our economy, all hands on deck right now. There's a pivot that's happening right now, and we need to ensure that all our citizens are going to be a part of this game. And in particular, I want to see more women in tech. I want to see more women at the table because of the money lost by not having them there. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I love it, Caron. That's great. And I love the ocean analogies, right? All hands on deck here, because you're right. The fog is going to lift and we're going to get going, right? Jerry, Fantastic conversation here today. What are your final thoughts?
Well, it's I wrote this down. I had a sales manager, so I spent 30 years in sales, 100% commission. Sales hide sins. That has never left me. And when you think about where we are right now, yeah, there's a lot of nervousness. You know, we're recording this the day after the Dame Green report came out. I was listening to some organizations on the radio this morning, a lot of protectionism, people worried, nervousness. Well, when I reflect on my own career, the times that my sales went down, it was tough. It lasted longer than I would like, but you kind of look inward and you reinvent yourself to come out stronger. So I think, Caron, what I'm hearing here today is just that. I think that's where Newfoundland is. It is an absolute pleasure to listen to you talk. You can hear the enthusiasm. You know, I can see you in Norway, in Guyana, and anywhere else just talking about Newfoundland. So thanks for being on this today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate this. And please keep up the good work. We need more of this. And I'm so impressed with what you're doing, bringing these great stories to the marketplace. Really important. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another wonderful edition of Gale Force Wins in conversation with Caron Hawco, a true communicator, an entrepreneur, a champion for Newfoundland and Labrador, a champion for the ocean economy. Very inspirational conversation. And Caron, thank you so very much for your time today. And I'll leave the audience with my own small piece of advice, and that is the world needs more Caron Hawco.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very sweet of you. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Wins. That's Gale Force Wins, WINS.com.